Welcome to the Poetry Box Live. My name is Shawn Aveningo Sanders, and I'm thrilled you could join us for a little poetry today. For those of you who may be tuning in to our show for the first time, my husband Robert and I run an independent press here in Portland, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box. Over the past 10 years, we've been lucky enough to collaborate with over 150 talented poets across the country to publish their books and chapbooks. We have a very special show for you today as we celebrate the winners of the Poetry Box Chapbook Prize for 2024. We have Allison Thorpe, our Designer's Choice winner, Laura Foley, our Editor's Choice winner, Flavian Mark Lupinetti, our Grand Prize winner, and also joining us today was our contest judge and special guest reader, Donna Hilbert. So let's get started with our first featured poet. Allison Thorpe is the author of A Girl, Her Slipper, and Yesterday's Rainbow, which was chosen as our Designer's Choice winner by Robert Sanders. Allison Thorpe, also known as Sylvia Ahrens, grew up on the shores of Lake Michigan. After adventuring around the country, she and her husband settled at the end of a lovely dirt road in Kentucky, where they built their own home, raised a family and a garden, and reveled in birdsong for almost 4 decades. Along the way, she earned degrees in English literature, creative writing, and women's studies. Her previous books include 6 collections of poetry and a series of cozy mysteries. Inspirations include the growly screams of Janis Joplin, the enduring courage of Aung San Suu Kyi, the complex melodies of Bella Fleck, and the beautiful finality of the Oxford comma. She works as a writing mentor at the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning, loves lilacs, yearns to be a poker star, and lives in Lexington, Kentucky. Please welcome Allison Thorpe.
Thank you, Shawn. That's quite an intro. I forgot I wrote all that. Thank you, Shawn and Robert, for doing all this. I was just amazed all the things you do for the writers. So thank you. It's a big job, I'm sure. My book is A Girl. Let me get on here. Okay. A Girl, Her Slipper, and Yesterday's Rainbow. And I love the cover. Cover is great. And I have had such good response to that, Robert. So thank you for that. I'm going to start with the first poem in the book. It's called At the Lake. Whenever Stella and my mother got together, out came the Mogan David and the Newports. Behavior my father would crush instantly. They'd linger the screened porch, let Billie Holiday ride the lake like a sweet silken sail. Feral, I would creep from my bed, listen to my mother's hushed sobs. Stella's "fuck 'em" whispered over and over. Then Stella would grab my mother, and they'd dance to Billie's Blue Moon, Stormy Weather, My Man Don't Love Me, twirling and waltzing the patio, arms fluid as liquid persuasion, harmonizing Billie so loudly, stars trembled loose from the sky. And I would sleep, finally, to the healing heartbreak of women. The second poem, I've got a prop. Some of you might recognize these bowls. They were popular in the 40s and 50s, I believe. And this one has survived for, 70 some years. So I figured it needed a poem of its own. This is called The Green Bowl. It was the decade of Pyrex, my mother delirious at obtaining the primary colored destining bowls. The small blue one went first, slipping from my sister's wet hands while she hovered the window as the boy next door, burly and sweating, mowed the lawn, shirtless. The yellow bowl, the largest, was reserved for making bread. The dough, busy under a white linen cloth, tested a child's patience. The bowl, cracked by an errant wooden rolling pin, I swung like a sword to quicken the rising. My dad hurled the red one at my mother after one of his frequent town paintings, breaking it like a heart into a million pulsing splinters. It was our favorite. Decades later, I discovered the green survivor while sifting through boxes in the attic. How it filtered to me, I don't remember. My hands become my mother's, cradling that bowl, placing it on the dinner table night after night, igniting eyes and noses with delight. Chunky beef stew, Velveeta doused macaroni, tuna casserole, strawberry jello ringed with bananas. Who doesn't remember that? Um, the one constant in our life, that green centerpiece, eavesdropped all our secrets, dances, Sunday church bazaar, the drunken slap across the table. My hands tremble, remembering its history, our rampant hungers. This next one started out as, thank you, started out as a Horace Greeley, Go West Young Man kind of poem, but halfway through it veered into something else. So this is my non-Horace Greeley, Go West Young Man poem. It's on page 16 if you have the book. It's called Saturday Evening. It was a girl, not Horace, who lured me west. We met at a bowling alley, the lone females that night, surrounded by winter cowboys, drunks, random grabbers. Wouldn't this place look good in the rear view mirror, she asked, jerking her thumb toward the door. My boyfriend was one of the drunks, so I followed her out. Her hair an inky river, satin water on a sunny day, ears slathered in dazzling dots, Georgia O'Keeffe skull gracing her neck. I was simple as a sidewalk, so I nodded, hoping something swank would fasten onto me. Adventure blazed like the idea of yonder. I went home, crammed a backpack, left a note, and nestled into her van. It wasn't the only rash thing I'd ever done, just the most bizarre. I welcomed fate like a holiday, rolled down my window and waved to the town limit sign, letting the jabber of stars coax me on to Sunday morning. Thank you. Shawn said, my husband and I in the 70s bought land in the country. We were homesteaders, pioneers, whatever you want to call us. We cleared land and built our own home and lived without electricity for quite a while, which was an experience. I don't think I'd go back to it, but I was younger then, so it was a good experience. This is called The Outlanders and the Radio. When the world's politics got unthinkable, they escaped to the deep woods and built a cabin. Too late for a fall garden, they stored apocalyptic provisions to see them through. The quiet stunned until they learned to read the sounds of nature. Dry leaves skittered with deer, squirrel, rabbit. Crows and loons gossiped their forlorn banter. The wind babbled against window and roof. But winter silenced everything. The fireplace pop and sizzle, their only familiar conversation. Soon the sun prodded the tweet and buzz of spring, nature's delirious renaissance, highlighting the absence of other human voices. So much so they dragged out the emergency radio, a small portable affair with impossible reception. But one AM station fluttered on occasion, provided brief weekend entertainment, a baseball game of all things, the announcer's husky excitement jamming the room like a forgotten party. They laughed at the idea of two rebels in the middle of nowhere, rapturous over the great American pastime. Somehow, the irony made such perfect sense, they almost had to pray. Thank you. And this last one's a little bit different. This is on page 22 if you do have the book. It's called The One About the Birthday Party. You know how it goes. Some kid who's turning 2 discovers cake, like it's sliced bread or plutonium. The rainbow frosting circling the mouth like the rings of Saturn, up into the nose, blotching the forehead, smothering the hand like a sweet, messy mitten. Or the one about the old lady who gets led into a room on shaky legs for a surprise gathering and ends up fainting, just folding like a crepe paper origami pet, bumping her head, family racing her to the emergency room, daughter screaming the whole way to her husband, I told you not to scare her. Or the young blonde who bends over a cake with lit candles and sets her curls on fire. Men more astounded by the tank top cleavage than the smoldering reek of hair. Or the manic boy who leans over the table and dive bombs face first into the cake like a kamikaze pilot or a bloodthirsty mosquito, collapsing the buffet and sending silverware and potato salad into orbit. So when your partner announces he wants to give you a party for your birthday and asks who to invite, you read the tarot deck of his eyes. Imagine his bronzy arms enveloping you like a love letter and whisper, you, causing the ripe of his lips to turn skyward. Just you. Thank you all, and happy birthday.
Oh, Allison, that went by way too quick. The poems in this collection are so wonderful, and it really does take us through a rainbow of emotion, if I will. I love your visceral descriptions. I mean, throughout the whole collection, it's like I could felt like I was holding that green bowl. But I have to say, my favorite description was about the 2-year-old eating cake, comparing it to sliced bread or plutonium. That's so great. Thank you
Thank you.
so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing these with us today. They're really fantastic. Next up, we have Laura Foley, author of Ice Cream for Lunch, A Grandparent's Handbook, which was my selection for the Editor's Choice Award. Laura Foley is the author of 10 previous poetry books, most recently Sledding the Valley of the Shadow. Her book, Why I Finished My Dissertation, received a starred Kirkus Review and an Eric Hoffer Award. She has won a Narrative Magazine Poetry Prize, the Common Goods Books Poetry Prize, Atlanta Review's Grand Prize, and others. Her work has been included in many journals, including Alaska Quarterly, Valparaiso, Poetry Society London, Atlanta Review, Poetry of Presence, and How to Love the World, Poems of Gratitude and Hope. She lives on the steep banks on the Connecticut River in New Hampshire and romps with her grandchildren as often as possible. It's my pleasure to welcome Laura Foley.
Thank you so much, Shawn. It's been only a pleasure working with you and bringing this book to the reality of ice cream. And I wish I can't really show you the book. Doesn't work. Oh, there we go. It's a very beautiful cover. So, and I'm very happy to be part of Poetry Box. So this is called Ice Cream for Lunch, a Grandparent's Handbook. So I want to keep that in mind. And we'll start out with one of the earliest poems in the book on page 10, if you're following. Neonatal ICU Prayer. Let us be gentle as we tend you. Let us hear the mechanical whirs and hums you do. Feel the vibrations of our coming and going. Let us not walk briskly by, but abide, breathing in unison. Close our eyes or open them wide as you do, smallest and most trusting of all of us needing care. Last week, my first grandchild healed here. May the same be true for all of you, our tiniest kin, in sheltering globes. On page 12, one day, I didn't read the news. I raked a rainbow of pungent autumn leaves, played abroad with happy dogs, held my granddaughter in my arms, and sat beneath an amiable maple, attentive to current events. Alternate reality. At just 2, Evelyn resists my hand, walks on her own down the steep drive, kicks a lump of snow she calls rock. At the bottom of the hill, Christmas waits in sacks, bright wrapper and ribbon just visible through black plastic, cardboard waving from the recycling bin in December wind. A truck rumbles up just in time for us, and she calls happily to Santa Claus, who jumps out and waves back as he loads the trash into his noisy sleigh. In white beard, ski cap, fluorescent green vest, I can see what she has seen in him, and now he begins to see in himself as he ho-ho-hos down the road, red taillights twinkling, engine thundering as he grinds the gears like 100 reindeer. Breakfast conversation. I've placed Evelyn's favorites, fresh raspberries, string cheese, a glass of milk in the giraffe cup, on her high chair tray. As she munches away, swinging her short legs, she asks thoughtfully, "Grandma, are you pooping?" I continue my bite of oatmeal, take a sip of coffee, respond, "No, darling, how about you?" She isn't either, as we both wonder what to say next. Symbiosis. Evelyn and I climb the hill in crisp sunrise. I lift an oak leaf from the ground crusted with first frost she touches, like fairy dust, and pockets to show her dad. We rest at a picnic spot on wooden chairs, close our eyes in meditation. Listen, I say, to the sounds you hear with closed eyes. Fallen leaves crinkling in autumn's morning breeze, blackbirds squawking unseen somewhere in the high pines, wind shuffling through hemlocks. And, she asserts in her thin, high toddler voice, clear and glad as a cardinal's trilling, the chairs, listen to the chairs. And we do, side by side, instructing each other. On page 18, this is called Grandparenting in the Time of COVID-19. You all remember what that was like, right? She shows me her flowered dress, striped leggings, leaps out of the frame onto the bed. I see a blur of her from time to time dashing by. When I plead to the empty screen, "I'd like to visit you, hold your hand, walk along streets, cross that little bridge over the swollen river for an ice cream, strawberry if you like." She plops down in front of the monitor. "No, Grandma, I'm in my house and you're in yours. Do you have any questions?" I think yes, 60 a minute, but say, "No, dear," as she goes back to twirling, and I try to content myself, watching the pink flowers swirling outward like ripples on a pond, or a flowered clock, she the second hand, ticking just beyond my reach. Joy and sorrow. Both emotions weigh about the same, but one opens you up like a cavity, a well of darkness you think will never fill. the liquid loss of a friend's voice, the way she turned a phrase. The other's like inhaling helium, so you walk the same street on the same tired feet, but hardly notice the impact. Not feeling heel or sole on cold pavement, light as a leaf riding a breeze. When you hold your grandson for the first time in his little star suit, his two pools of deep blue beam into you. His long fingers curl and uncurl like lilies at dawn or dusk. Air you still breathe as you hover that night like a balloon over your bed, still hearing your friends' waterfall notes, finally knowing both joy and sorrow are holy. My state. At daycare, Evelyn says, Sue serves us spoiled eggs. Oh, you mean boiled? No, spoiled, and I don't like them. Later, I ask Sue, who elucidates, scrambled. In the parking lot, we talk license plates. Mine has a loon, she explains, and yours is green. Yes, yours is a loon because you're from Maine. Yes, Grandma, but I'm from license plate too. I squint into space, trying to imagine the state of license plate, but find a mind of scrambled eggs. Jaw-dropping. I give Eleanor a pink, gooey slab of salmon for lunch on toast with capers on top, and she eats it all up. At dinner, it's mussels, silver blue shells rising from a reddish broth. Through thick green glasses, this little predator peers at the creatures, pries one open, grips the mushy, veined body between two small fingers, pops it into her mouth, yum, drops the empty shell into a bowl. This will give me mussels. I explain that mussels are living creatures we kill to eat. She drops, Grandma, I like killing, and pulls another dripping to her plate. Into the silky water. At almost 5, she's learning to care how words can hurt, and so tells me, I look pretty with my tummy hanging out. We're both in bathing suits, and now I look down at my ample belly as, as Evelyn continues, I don't want to say you look silly. I take her hand. Yes, darling, I understand. As we tiptoe through new grass to the summer pond, Grandma, you're beautiful, she speaks, as we leap into the silky water like two glittering fish. And just a couple more. Live streaming in Lucky Cafe. He hums the alphabet song as his fingers trace embossed license plates adorning the wall by his chair. I hand him some blueberry scone, some cheese. He sings, noticing me, noticing him, and the soft rain just beginning to silver our window, and the road, the park, the evergreen hemlocks, maple leaves beginning to turn this warm late summer day. Strangers smile at us, and he dimples back. He traces a letter, M for Milo, then G for Grandma. The rain slows, stops, then begins again. From such depths. So this was the first movie theater experience. We grope for seats in darkness made black by our sight, still used to the bright afternoon, as mermaids navigate with ease on screen in deep, dark seas. When the witch appears, Eleanor shouts to the room, it's going to be all right. And then again, when the shark opens its gaping mouth, when I begin to think I know from what depths her faith swims, having transcended at 5 her need for a wheelchair, walking freely into the theater, into a future we adults once only hoped was possible, Halfway through, I whisper, "Want to go get popcorn?" But the pleasure of that distraction can't match her anticipation. "No, Grandma, I want to watch. I know what's going to happen next." Later, a warm summer downpour turns the street to sea, soaks through our clothes as we stand under a cleansing eve, reach out our hands sticky with ice cream. And thank you. The last poem is actually the title poem, I realize. Epiphany. When I say I love the sound of waves on rocks, the shower of white-capped foam, Evelyn covers her ears to muffle the din. My, "Let's gaze at the sea, look for seals bobbing in the surf," elicits her, "I'd rather see an eel." Strolling marginal way to reach the sandy beach, a mile along the rocky coast, she's chosen to wear a long-sleeved, dark green velveteen dress. Every stranger we pass this mid-May morning smiles and greets the child in Christmas attire. She beams broadly back and twirls her dress. Because her dress is making her sweat, and I remember she dislikes sticky sand touching her feet, we never make it to the beach. We find a bench instead, rest in shade, and then we agree, "I need it, Grandma, to cool off." A perfect dish of chocolate chip for lunch. Thank you, guys.
Laura, my face hurts from smiling so much. I've got tears in my eyes. This collection is just simply joy, 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 joy. And I remember when I first read it because I had been a grandma for a year with my first granddaughter, and I was reading these poems, and I was feeling this enormity of love and the wisdom from these children. It's just so brilliant. There's just so many wonderful moments in this book, and I tell you what, we need this book right now more than ever. I don't care if you do, even if you don't have grandchildren, this is just a happy, happy read, and we need more of this. So thank you so much for writing it. Thank you for trusting us to publish it. Thank you for entering our contest. I love this book so, so very much. Thank you, Laura. Well, next up, we have Flavian Mark Lupinetti, author of The Pronunciation Part, which was our grand prize winner chosen by Donna Hilbert. Mark Lupinetti is a pushcart-nominated poet, fiction writer, and cardiac surgeon who received his MFA from the Vermont College of Fine Arts. He received first place awards in the 2023 Social Justice Poetry Contest, sponsored by Sport Literate, and the 2014 Betsy Scholl Poetry Award, sponsored by Words and Images. His creative writing has appeared in Bellevue Literary Review, Cutthroat, December, Red Divider, Ziziba, among others. And his contributions to the canon of scientific literature include more than 90 peer-reviewed papers, research studies, and monographs. A native of West Virginia, Mark now lives in New Mexico. It's my pleasure to welcome Flavian Mark Lupinetti.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Shawn, Robert, and Donna for this great honor. And then I'd like a show of hands. How many remember COVID? Does that strike a familiar note? Okay, some of you. A lot of us remember it vividly, including a close friend and colleague of mine for whom I wrote this poem. They call this a refugee title, a title that also serves as the first line. Dr. Ruiz didn't quit his job today, but he must have thought about it when we came in for our morning shift, and Jim, who pulled nights this week, signed out the ICU patients. 8 on ventilators, 10 stable off them, 6 who could go either way. Oh, and Mrs. Bowen, the one you intubated yesterday, she boxed last night. I bet he thought about it again when the coding clerk asked him to revise his progress notes on Mrs. Bowen, whom he'd taken care of for a month. Can you add more diagnoses? The clerk asked. For accuracy. Dr. Ruiz translated. For jacking up the reimbursement. Maybe he thought about it again when he intubated room 23. I asked, is that the guy? And we both know who I meant. The guy who didn't practice distancing. The guy who said only pussies wear masks. The guy who learned that Dr. Ruiz was a doctor, from the DR, Dominican Republic, and from then on referred to Dr. Ruiz as Sammy Sosa. I know he thought about it when he told me over lunch, this place treats us like the fucking janitors. I showed him the Espada poem, the one about the janitor who quit his job. He said, write a poem about me. Call it Dr. Ruiz Finally Quits. Yet I can tell all thoughts of quitting are forgotten by the time our 12 hours end and we drag ass out to the garage. Last year, nights like this, we went home and texted each other while watching Cubs highlights. But this is the spring of 2020. There may be no baseball this season. Only the virus is catching. And the only ones I know for sure will step up to the plate tomorrow are me and Dr. Ruiz. One day, Dr. Ruiz, his real name, said, I need some badass help today. And I said, who would be badass enough to give you the help you need? And name anyone, living or dead, real or fictional, but it can't be a doctor. He told me, and I wrote this. Samuel L. Jackson pulls a shift in the ICU at the height of the pandemic. Motherfucker in room 11, turning blue around the gills. Intubate the motherfucker. 10 more hours in my shift. Turning blue around the edges. Week-old donuts in doctor's lounge. 9 more hours in my shift. Can Duncan make a ventilator? Doctor's donuts down disposal. My homemade mask is 1 week old. Can anyone make a ventilator? I wonder if I can get the test. My homemade mask is 1 week old, starting to grow a greenish coating. I wonder if I fail the test. I wonder if I can smash my pager. Room 11 started coding, left a list of next of kin, gave them the number of my pager. Jesus Christ, I hope they lost it. Don't have time to call the kin. Motherfucker in room 18. Jesus Christ, he's going to lose it. Intubate the motherfucker. A lot of things that surgeons learn don't come in the form of lectures or textbooks. Some things merely get absorbed. This poem is titled, Surgery Interns Know the Rules. Never let anyone see how scared you are. If anybody asks you if you've done one of these before, you say, yes, I've done one, because no one wants to take responsibility for helping you do your first. But if you say you've done several, you might not get the help you need. Never say, oops. Always say, there. Nobody grades you anymore on a scale from A to F. Henceforth, those who judge your performance do so on a spectrum with Bugs Bunny at one end and Elmer Fudd at the other. There's one bad thing about in-house call every other night. You miss half the good stuff. Some of your mentors operate at the speed of light, others at the speed of dark. You can do nothing about this. If you need help managing a sick patient, calling someone more experienced, a senior resident, an attending, will always be regarded as a sign of weakness. The only clue the patient has about the quality of the surgery is how well you close the skin. One of the toughest principles to learn for surgeons, control freaks by nature, is that there are some things you can control and some you can't. Rejection speech. That you can't trust a teenager is a lesson I learned the hard way, because I trusted Tommy, who was 13 when I met him, but with the physique of a 4-year-old, thanks to the heart the size of a half-deflated beach ball, and just as robust when it came to pumping blood. And although some of my colleagues said he was too sick for me to do anything, I transplanted his heart, and by the following spring, he played Little League. Not well. It turns out that hitting a curveball can't be transplanted. And over the following years, he took his anti-rejection drugs and made his appointments and developed a side hustle, talking to civic groups to raise money for the hospital, until 5 years later when he decided taking meds sucked, so he quit taking them. Rejection, obituary. And if Tommy was the only teenager who did this, that would be tragic enough. But Charlene, age 14, did the same thing because the drugs grew hair on her forehead and her back. Talking Lon Chaney Wolfman pelt here. And Derek, at 16, moved out of his mom's house to live in the trunk of a friend's car before giving up. And that shit happens over and over and over. So don't say a fucking word to me when I transplant kids who are mentally challenged. Because one thing I can count on is they're supervised so closely, they never miss a dose. And the other thing I can count on is I never have to ask myself, should I have put that heart into somebody else? I've spent most of my life in the operating room, my happy place. My British and Irish colleagues have a more elegant term for this hallowed environment. This poem is called Operating Theater. When I give the order to start the pump and the maimed heart muscle collapses like the rotten rubber of a busted out 2-ply tire, I face the possibility that my meager vein grafts won't get this patient out of the room alive. He could die on the table right in front of me. Or he might succumb later tonight following a brief struggle, or linger a few days more until my siege of drugs and machines and consultant opinions prove futile. The answers must await the climax of the operation and the denouement. When I think about this stage, these special effects, and the remote possibility of a happy ending, I wonder why it took me so long to grasp the meaning of the words. Operating theater. In this drama, I play 2 roles, protagonist and spectator, actor who does not know the ending, audience member who cannot find the exit. Here's another poem with a refugee title. I worry every time I enter the operating room, whether I made the correct diagnosis, whether I planned the proper operation, whether this 81-year-old man can endure the procedure. Those are the easy ones. I worry about the other members of my team. Is my first assistant concentrating on this case or on whether we'll finish fast enough that she can pick up her kid after school? Has my anesthesiologist focus faltered because the hospital's administrators threatened to outsource his specialty to a private equity firm? I worry about myself. Am I paying total attention to this double valve replacement, suppressing all thoughts about the lump my wife will have biopsied tomorrow? Over 35 years, the list lengthens. An electrical failure, immersing us in darkness, save for my battery-powered headlight. A contaminated blood transfusion, dooming the patient years from now. A housefly, designs malign, buzzing through the room, airlifting a sinister brigade of bacteria. I learned to worry about earthquakes, after one rattled my operating room like a properly shaken martini, minutes after I opened the baby's chest, but before I could get her on the heart-lung machine. But in all that time, I never worried whether a bomb would fall on me, a bomb paid for by American taxes, donated by an American president, guided by American military intelligence, the way bombs fell on Dr. Hammam Allo, on Dr. Medhat Siam, on Dr. Ayman Abu Aluf, and the way they continue to fall. I will close with the poem I wrote on the day before I retired, a little something to mark the occasion. It's called After Today. After today, one of my partners asked, "What are you going to do?" He means, what am I going to do in retirement after 35 years? I tell him, something worthwhile, just to shake things up. He laughs, but that's a question for tomorrow. Today, I reflect that I got it wrong. I thought I spent all these years holding those hearts in my hands, but it was those hearts holding on to me. Today, for the final time, I don blue-gray scrubs, sun-bright headlight, 3.5 power optical loops, comfy sneakers concentrated by the blood of thousands of patients and permanently stained despite countless washings. Today, I entered the operating room where my scrub tech has opened her trays and aligned my tools like knights on horseback ready to lay siege. Scalpels and rongeurs, scissors and trocars, needles and lancets and osteotomes. Instruments machined from nickel and steel and titanium, chrome and copper and lead, all the precious metals. Each instrument imparting its unique gratification when I grasp it, when I touch it to the patient's heart. Today, I await the arrival of my last patient, who will lie on my operating table, this marvel of ergonomic perfection that adjusts smoothly, remains immobile, and resists vibration when someone bangs into it. After today, if I show up in this room again, I will be the one lying on the table. Thank you.
Mark. Oh, these poems. Wow. I don't get speechless too often, but these are so moving and from such a unique perspective that we often don't get to hear, that often as patients and caregivers, we don't take for granted, but we don't understand what it is you're going through on the other end. And this is just such a beautiful tribute to the whole spectrum of the story when someone's in crisis and needs a doctor's help. And it's just such a brilliant collection. I mean, your inventiveness when you used the pharmaceutical warning labels for your erasure poems that are in the book, the candor of your stories that you share are just incredible. And then your talent as a wordsmith to kind of bring all this together for this absolutely outstanding collection of poems. I just want to thank you for writing these powerful, powerful poems. I think Donna said when she picked you as a winner that these poems have the propulsive force of a page-turning novel. And I have to agree. I mean, the first time I read it, I couldn't put it down. And then I read it again, and not because I had to, because I wanted to. And then working on it and reading, it's just, I was moved every single time. I found something new every single time to touch me. And this is just a brilliant, brilliant collection. So thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Well, thank you. And thanks to Robert for a dynamite cover. I love it. And I think other people will love it too.
Oops, I held it up backwards. There it is.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Our final featured poet today is the wonderful Donna Hilbert, who has been an inspiration for my own writing and was gracious enough to agree to be our guest judge for last year's chapbook contest. Donna Hilbert's newest book is Enormous Blue Umbrella, just released from the Moontide Press, who also published her very popular book, Threadnity. She is a monthly contributing writer to Verse Virtual. Her work has appeared in Braided Way, Cultural Daily, Chiron Review, Gyroscope, Sheila and a Gig, Rattle, One Art, the Los Angeles Times, and numerous anthologies, including The Poetry of Presence, Volumes 1 and 2, The Path to Kindness, The Wonder of Small Things, I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, and she's been featured on Writers on Writing, The Writer's Almanac, and Lyric Life. She writes and leads private workshops in Southern California, where she makes her home. It is my honor to introduce Donna Hilbert.
It is such an honor, a pleasure to be here and read with these fantastic poets. Mark, you've made me cry, and now I have to do a reading. But it was such a pleasure to judge this contest, such marvelous manuscripts to choose from. I'm going to read mostly from Enormous Blue Umbrella, but the second poem I'll read is from Threnody, and then I've stuck a new one in the middle, just because sometimes you just have to read a new poem. Okay. Opening. They capture light, my neighbor says, of his many angled windows fronting water on the Bayside's shore. Who wouldn't want to capture light? The way a child traps fireflies on a summer night. In the waning dark, I catch what I can with my cell phone's eager eye and greet again the great window opening. From Threnody, walking the Palo Alto marshes in my red coat. Say mudflat, salt marsh, bittern, egret. Say egret without thinking regret, one letter away. Say morning is a gift. Say the mud flat is a silver tray. Say birds sing like an orchestra tuning. I am looking for a prayer. I am walking for the saving incantation. I am working at metaphor. Say blackbird. Say red wings like epaulets of blood. Say heart, red, four-chambered room. Say womb, breast, cradle, boat. Say, say desire. Say desire dark and fathomless, the iris of an eye, your eye, the sea. Say desire which is the boat. I'm wearing my red coat against the cold. Passage at 19. I hold you to my breast for the slow ride home through falling snow. Flesh of my flesh, I am reborn, dancing in terror and joy, balanced on the eyelash of a blinking God. Chocolate milk. That day, I feared I'd never stop crying, my tears a torrent taking me out to sea. Dr. Helene asked me what soothed me as a sad and scared small kid. Chocolate milk, I said. Drink that, she said. Drink until you stop the crying. I drove through the drive-in dairy, bought a can of chocolate syrup and a gallon of milk, and drank and drank and drank until my life was sweet enough to greet my children stepping through the door from school. Here's the new poem. It was published in One Art in December. Dog's story. I'm gonna have to go under the desk and get a drink of water. I have to keep the water under the desk because I'm the clumsiest person on earth. If it were on the desk, it would soon be in the computer. Dog story. Perhaps because I had finished a book the night before about a dog who pulled a woman from the sea of grief. On my morning walk, when I see a dog that looks like the first dog I ever wanted, I put my hand out for a lick. The dog of memory walks up the street to sit beside me while I pull weeds from shaggy grass. The boys are small. When they see the dog, they want to keep him too. It's only right to take him to the shelter, my husband says, while hustling the dog into the car, in case the owner comes to claim him. Husband returns from the shelter, reports the dog can be adopted on Saturday if the owner hasn't come by then. On Saturday morning, go get our dog, I say. After tennis, he says. Go now, I say. If I had a car, I say. Go now, I say. There's time, he says. After tennis. Please go now, I say. On Saturday afternoon, after tennis, after the shelter, where's our dog? I ask. Too late, husband says. If I had a car, I say. I'm sorry, he says. Too late, I say. I bite my tongue. I'm at Gelson's bakery counter when Fly Me to the Moon comes over the sound system and I make a face and say something rude like puke. The clerk, who doesn't look old enough to know the tune or hold a job, says, "You don't like that song?" Not the song, I tell her. It's him. I gather steam, feel my face flush. I rush on. I saw him once. He muffed his famous songs, even with cue cards. His son was on the piano. He cursed him, called him stupid. The girl's face melts from quizzical to sad. She slips my bagels into a bag and says, I don't want to feel bad things about families. I return my sword to its sheath. I clamp my teeth hard. Half my life is spent either taking walks or shopping at Gelson's. So all books have walking and shopping poems. I can't stop it. Ribolito. I also cook a little. I praise the way you save stale bread left on the shelf too long. Rinds of Parmesan tough to grate, old greens not crisp enough for salad, but fine for soup, reboiled from what's on hand. I love the way you salvage bruised tomatoes, sprouting onions, imperfect squash, laying no morsel to mold, nothing to waste, filling each space with aroma of soup, saying supper, manja, come, eat, come safely, come home. I should have taken an allergy pill today. I hate to, but now I'm all enormous blue umbrella. Enormous, sad and blue, this umbrella we walk beneath. It's winter still, but who could tell with skies so poignant blue? It stings the eye, and cold informs the air, and merely a cold informs the air. Passers-by don't seem to notice the mountain's sharp outline beyond the bayside homes. And across the boulevard, across the sand, beyond the stranded ships, Catalina shines like tinfoil. It's the walkers I wonder about. Sad faces, our caps pulled down, moving fast, no place special to go, but so fierce to get there. Excuse me. Morning doves. Because the potted plant on the back porch needs water, I come nose to beak with the brooding dove. Too late to stop the water pouring from my pitcher, I flood the nest. Her mate watches from power lines. She moves to a nearby ledge, leaving the eggs alone in the sodden pot. Throughout the day, I go outside and see the doves maintaining vigil. By nightfall, the pair is gone. I peer into the pot. Nothing remains of nest or feather, not a trace of shell. This boat. This is for Tori Eden. Tomorrow is the 7th anniversary of her death, and the next couple of poems are about her. This boat. Were you 2 or 3, strapped to my lap in the kayak, I paddled into the wetlands, past the sign that read, "Go back." Herons, pelicans, cormorants flew close enough to touch, and sun dazzled the murk below. In this boat, we can go anywhere, you said, then pressed your cheek to my breast and slept. You were almost grown when you chose the unknown water. If there were signs ahead, I failed to heed or even see them. Summer. Solstice again. One year we waded into the sea to wash crystals. It was all about feng shui. The water was cold, the sky cloud gray. Back in the house, you fingered your name onto the foggy windows with hearts for O's, frames, and punctuation. I took a photo of this. Now it's proof you were here, and for a time, happy. Bad weather. I have been the fallen bird. Let me start again. I have been the falling bird waiting for the ride that never came, walking home in beating rain. I have been the forlorn traveler, familiar in the corridors of waiting. I have been the fallen bird, pulled out of grief's bad weather, caressed and held together, spoon-fed, until I wished to die, then live again. Spiritus. I waken to the sound of breathing, so loud I think it's you beside me. But no, love, it's me, my breath alone. 2 more. New. That time in the park, at the end of the street, our dog's off leash, and we are off leash too. Our love so new, we kiss and kiss, not caring for once who sees us, what might be said or be construed. But let me tell you, plenty was said. Thank you, note. Thank you for staying up all night, setting the alarm for every 3 hours, making sure I get my meds on time to stay ahead of the pain. You straighten the sheets. You coax me to eat. You bring croissants and the only yogurt I can stomach. You let me cry without comment, though I know it pains you to see me suffer. You stand by while I shower, adjust temperature and force to not unthread the hidden sutures. Note, dearest, I will do this for you. You who appeared from the blue and gave me the future. Thank you.
Oh gosh, Donna. That was a lot of, and
Well, you know, grief, what can I say?
yeah, and I tell you what, nobody writes the human experience like you do, Donna. Your poems are just so honest and just so rich, and how you compact so much into the short poem is amazing. I'm in awe. And I just want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy workshop schedule last year to judge our contest. And I want to just thank you for writing so many beautiful poems and for being such a lovely, open human being. You're just the best.
Oh, Shawn, thank you so much.
Thank
Best.
you for sharing these with us
Yeah.
today. It's really, really
I
special.
used to be, I just want to tell everybody, I used to be funny. Honestly, I used to be funny.
You
And,
are funny. You still
I
are.
stayed alive, and so stuff happened. You know, I was widowed in middle age, and so I had to like be an adolescent and go on 1,000 horrible dates before I.
I love it. Well, I tell you what, speaking of spilling water, I'm gonna send you my secret adult sippy cup that I use so I don't spill my water.
There's so many, things against. I have a Yeti, but this isn't the Yeti, the closable Yeti, which I
Yeah.
should have brought in here. It's the kick overable Yeti. But yesterday I leaked ink all over my hands, and so
Oh, I saw the picture.
you
Yeah.
saw the picture. Well, people didn't realize the opening my vein was, a
To write.
literary reference
Yeah.
to all that open your vein and bleed everywhere. I opened my red ink pen, and it even made a perfect A on the floor, which I'm not sure what that stood for. But I took a picture of that too. But it looked like I had just. So my partner, who's came. I said, "You got to come in and take a picture of my hands." So he said, "Okay, make a face."
That was wonderful and delightful. And thank you so much for sharing with us today, Donna.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. What a tough group to follow. My God.
Oh, everybody was wonderful. Let's give everybody a giant round of applause for all of our readers today. I'd like to thank our 4 talented poets, Allison Thorpe, Laura Foley, Mark Lupinetti, and of course, Donna Hilbert. And thank you to our audience for supporting our authors and joining us for another edition of the Poetry Box Live. Our next show will be Saturday, March 8th, with featured poets David Belmont, Luna Moore-Latour, Leanne Birkin, and Carolyn Martin. I hope all of you can join us next month. And for all you poets out there in our audience, the Poetry Box Chapbook Prize is now open for submission through March 15th. And our guest judge this year is one of my favorite poets, George Bilger. You can find all the details on our website, thepoetrybox.com. And while you're there, feel free to subscribe to our newsletter. There's a sign-up form at the bottom of each webpage. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Go Chiefs.
Wonderful group of poets.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone
Have a
was
good day,
just wonderful.
everyone. Thank you so much. This was beautiful.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for being here.